That's the whole catch in youth engagement, is what do we mean when we say it? And so every time you start to push a boundary, if you're encouraging a school or you're encouraging a program or whatever to push into a youth engagement space, you really need to know that you're both on the same page on what you mean. Engagement is where the sense of purpose and the driver for action is internal. A young person, an adult, whatever, is going to act, is going to create opportunity, and isn't waiting to be given opportunity. That to me is engagement. The leadership is a little bit of both. Leadership means I can step into a leadership position and I can make the most of it, and I can get engaged through leadership. But they're subtly different things. And when you're talking about youth becoming active leaders in schools and creating opportunities in their communities and so forth, there's a big shift that happens between an adult-driven or adult-created opportunity that's already sanctioned and already accepted and the school's nodded, to then a really engaged group of students who create their own opportunity. That's not automatically sanctioned. That's not automatically okayed by a principal, and maybe they need to go through those channels, but that to me is the difference. Sort of one is internally driven and one can be externally driven. And backing up, sort of voice is having a chance to offer an opinion into process and into decision making, and participation is largely just being involved. And so there's limited decision making, there's limited deep engagement, but it can be the doorstep. Mm-hmm. So wherever you can't take the idea of engagement and this sort of that's tied to identity and introduce that to a family or a community or a school system or anyone that has never even involved young people through participation or through voice. You have to kind of step it out to some degree to make sure it's a safe opportunity for everybody. I have not, in my experience, run into a young person who, given the space and asked the right questions and given the time, didn't engage. Adults get caught by saying, here's an opportunity that would be good for you, you should get engaged in. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're talking about. And so then when they don't engage in that, we say, oh, the youth, they don't care, or the youth, they're this, or the youth, they're that. When it takes more time, and you have to step back, and you have to let it be a little organic, and you have to, it may take you, 6 weeks of asking why. Why? Well, what about this? But at the end of that 6 weeks, you'll find a young person who's realized, oh, I have power to do something. Youth voice is one of the terms that's most often used, and I think misconstrued, because I think there are a lot of teachers out there who genuinely believe in youth voice, at least as they define it, but don't believe in youth voice as I define it or as most young people define it. And you see it in a conference setting like this. You see it when a community like this comes together and they see their peers leading. They see their peers being the first behind the mic. People don't rebel against that. Mm-hmm. They see that and they feel part of it. When they feel like they have no power, they push to try to find power. So if a sort of command and control classroom is the perfect environment for a kid to act out. And we think of that backwards, because a kid, by definition of what teenage years mean, is looking to understand power and to think in the abstract and to start to feel out relationships differently than they've ever done before. And so a command and control classroom is a perfect place for a kid to be a pain. Mm-hmm. And a classroom that feels more like community, where you as my peer are perhaps leading or doing a welcome one day, then all of a sudden, well, I don't want to act bad against you, I want to act out against you, because now there's this sort of shared ownership of the space. If the teacher's the sole owner of the space, it does create an environment that we all know from being teenagers, biologically we're predisposed to pick at, you know. And that to me is where the benefit of engaging young people, even if it feels abstract at the beginning, is all about building a different school climate and all about building shared ownership of a school, because we see it everywhere. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. Students who don't feel engaged and don't feel shared ownership in their school don't care about it. I mean, it's basic kind of logic. Yeah. Every good service learning practitioner knows that there's really bad service learning. And you can have, let's say that a service learning project is a biology class, and you go to the local stream and you're doing water tests and you're doing some things and cleaning up the stream and you're engaged. You can have the exact same product, like two classes do the exact same thing, and they can be fundamentally different experiences. They can have the same reports, they can have the same findings, but if one has a teacher who is driving the whole process, and through the whole process the students are just doing what the teacher says, and the other is a classroom where the students were allowed to do planning and think through what kind of analysis they wanted to do about the stream, about how does it link to biology, how does it link to health. Two totally different experiences. One totally misses the point, the other totally gets the point, and you have the same product. Not to simplify it, but catch the schools doing something right by your kid. You know, we try to shift it and sort of call it a gotcha moment, but a good gotcha moment, you know, and be there when that happens and acknowledge when that happens. If a teacher does something really positive, or if your kid comes home and says, I had a great day at class today, let the teacher know you know that, and let the teacher know that you told the principal that Mr. So-and-so's class or Miss So-and-so's class was outstanding today. And we just haven't cultivated that positive interaction between families and schools. We focused on, we get a bad report card, or there's a disciplinary action, or you know, something like that, which I understand, but that's reactive relationship. And you, to get to a different place, there's got to be some kind of shift to a more proactive relationship. And I've had that shift in my own work. I mean, from a reactive space to really saying, okay, long term, the kind of change that we're talking about requires that we have real relationships. From a strategic standpoint, there is nothing more powerful than for example, a student with Down syndrome getting on a mic and talking about their experience. It doesn't matter if you understand 10% of it or if you understand all of it. It doesn't matter if it makes some kind of narrative linear sense or if it's just pure passion. It doesn't matter. The power of that kid behind the mic telling his story is what matters, and it's hard to put up a hard front against that. And so I just think it's, again, I go back to, you know, if you're gonna judge quality based on complete sentences, size of vocabulary, voice projection, those are all meaningless. Can you deliver the message? And part of self-advocacy is that part of the message is the self-advocacy itself. I mean, and you're the one, and it's your experience. And I would challenge anyone to hear a student who has been marginalized to another wing of a school building, who's been told to have lunch at 10 a.m., who's been separated and not engaged in homecomings and things like that, to speak about that themselves, about what it feels like to say that, well, that's just the way we have to do it. You've got to spark people's heart, and I can't spark someone's heart by talking about how wonderful students with disabilities are and as advocates for themselves. They have to see it. And that's why these kinds of experiences and getting people, we as adults have to be okay handing the mic and going, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, get them on the news. See what happens.
Yeah.
We're more harsh and afraid and scared about what it's going to look like and sound like than they are, and so that to me is a real key part of it. The sort of the medium is the message kind of. I mean, they are the medium, and they represent it, and they are part of the message, regardless of what words come or don't come.